Over the last couple of weeks, I've been working to kick Microsoft Windows to the curb and make the switch to Linux. But, depending on what you need out of your tech and your comfort level with tinkering, it can be a daunting and confusing task. My name is John, and this is my YouTube channel, where I make videos about whatever I feel like. Today, I feel like embracing the penguin and telling you how my Linux journey is progressing so far. This is not a guide. I'm not an expert. In fact, I barely know what I'm doing. But I feel like a lot of people are in the same situation, so maybe sharing my experience can help you. Learn from my success, and learn from my failure, because we certainly have both in this video. So why am I switching? Because of reasons I'm not going to rehash now, but you can check out my Goodbye Windows video here if you want to listen to me rant about it. Long story short, I've got a laptop, a desktop workstation, 2 home theater PCs, a NUC, and hopefully a tablet that need operating systems, and I don't want to use Windows anymore. So just install Linux, right? Well, it isn't that simple. Where do I start? What Linux distribution do I use? There are a lot of them, and a lot of people have really strong opinions about which one is the best. So I started where a lot of people making the switch do, with Linux Mint. It's clean, capable, runs on pretty much anything, and if you're used to Windows, the Cinnamon desktop environment that it comes with is intuitive and easy to switch to. I really like it, and if all you use your computer for is typical tasks, it's probably perfect for you. I dipped my toes in the proverbial Linux pool with Mint on both of my home theater PCs, and it was just about perfect. It isn't streamlined for a home theater PC experience like some distributions are, but that's okay, because I wanted a desktop experience and an environment where I could tinker around and learn, and it didn't really matter if I had to wipe the computer and start over. These home theater PCs are basically super mega overkill Rokus or Fire TV sticks, or whatever brand of smart TV device you want to compare them to. 80% of their job is just playing media through a Plex or Jellyfin app, or watching YouTube in a web browser. And 15% of their job is couch gaming, which they're also pretty great at. And this brings me to a major reservation a lot of people have about Linux: gaming. Gaming was something that held me back from making the switch the last time that I tried. Yeah, I admit it, I explored switching to Linux back when I decided I wasn't really a fan of Windows Vista. Also, I do have a little bit of experience with Linux, just not really as a desktop environment. I run Linux on some of my home server projects, but that's what they call headless operation. The computer doesn't have a monitor or keyboard and mouse attached to it. You let the server just do its job and you interact with it from another machine, either through SSH or remote access, or through a web browser, depending on what it's doing. Running Linux as your daily driver desktop operating system is a whole other beast, and that's where I have very little experience. Even though I still consider myself a novice with the home server stuff too. But the last time I tried to use Linux as my main desktop, I didn't last very long, in no small part because gaming on Linux was not great back then. But gaming on Linux has slowly and steadily improved between then and now, and in 2022, this thing right here dialed progress up to 11. This is my Valve Steam Deck. Or at least it was. I broke it, and my heart broke with it. This handheld gaming computer was the must-have gadget for a lot of people when it first came out, and is still extremely popular today. Before I snapped the charging port off of mine, I used it practically every day. And it comes with a version of Arch Linux on it, running under the console-like gaming interface. According to the research firm IDC, Valve sold an estimated 3.7 to 4 million Steam Decks in the first 3 years. While that is a small percentage of Steam's estimated 132 million monthly active users, it is still a big enough number, and Valve a big enough force in the gaming industry, to draw a lot of attention to gaming on Linux. The Proton compatibility layer and its forks are amazing. Proton supported 27 games when it was released in 2018. Today, the website protondb.com says almost 7,000 games are verified for the Steam Deck, and more than 22,800 are verified or playable on the platform. Granted, some of those are due to native Linux versions of the game from the developer, but that's a huge win for Linux gaming on its own. Add it up, and that is about 40% of the entire Steam library that is at least playable available on the Steam Deck, which, at its heart, is just a little Linux computer. But 40% is not 100%. Not every game works. A lot of games that are deal breakers for people don't work. I don't have an ideal source to cite for this, but I've heard a million anecdotes explaining that anti-cheat is a common reason for games to not work on Linux. So, if you're thinking about making the switch, but you 100% absolutely have to have a specific game, check its compatibility first. Some games just can't run on Linux because the developers or publishers won't allow it. Battlefield 6 is the prime example right now. That game has a kernel-level anti-cheat with requirements including Windows 10 or 11, Secure Boot, and TPM 2.0. The game just doesn't work on Linux. That might change in the future, but it's the case right now. Side rant, kernel-level anti-cheat is ridiculous. Look, I get wanting to keep cheaters out of multiplayer games. I'm with you on that. I don't want to unknowingly play against people with an unfair advantage, but I also don't want to risk the security of my system and sign access to everything over to you just to prove I don't have an aim hack or whatever running. There has to be a better way. Anyway, for me, I just decided that I don't need to deal with that. Enough of my games library is playable on Linux to keep me mostly happy, and if a publisher is not going to allow Linux players, then I don't need to buy their game. I have enough other options. My backlog is extensive as is. And if a game comes out and I really need to play it but can't on my PC, maybe I'll cave and go back to console for it. I don't currently have a PS5, but if I absolutely need to play Battlefield 6, I could go get one. But I won't, because I'm successfully playing plenty of games on Linux to keep me occupied. But gaming, YouTube, and watching movies is just a small part of what my computers in my life are for. Sure, it's 95% of what those home theater PCs are for, but what about my other machines? My laptop and desktop are both extensively used for productivity, office-type work, and creative applications. And yeah, gaming too. But they're how I do my work and how I run my business, and for that, I need capable and reliable tools. This is where we get to the next major hurdle in the switch to Linux: Microsoft Office and Adobe Creative Cloud, or any other specific software applications you might need. I'll start with the easy one, Microsoft Office. I switched to LibreOffice, a free and open source alternative to most Office applications. LibreOffice Writer is a very capable replacement for Microsoft Word, and Calc is a solid replacement for Excel for most people. And I say that as someone with a degree in accounting. Trust me, I know my way around a spreadsheet, and Calc is better than good enough. And Impress is also a good replacement for PowerPoint. Sure, all of these applications may have some deficiencies for really advanced users or niche use cases, but I've used these three apps pretty extensively for over 2 years now. Yes, I switched to LibreOffice on Windows, and I've never found myself saying, "This can't do a thing I need that Word, Excel, or PowerPoint could do." That said, I haven't really used LibreOffice Base, the Microsoft Access replacement, much, so I can't speak to that. And I haven't tried a lot of live collaboration in this suite, so those are potential downsides I might be blind to. Also, LibreOffice does not include a Microsoft Outlook alternative, but there's another free and open source application called Thunderbird, which I am using extensively now, and it's been solid. I have 4 email accounts set up in Thunderbird right now, including accounts from popular common email providers like Gmail, and an email account set up through my domain registrar. Setting these up was easy, and they've been working really well. I have my calendar and contacts in Thunderbird synced to my personal Nextcloud server, which also keeps them synced to my phone. It's working great. Thus far, Thunderbird has been a perfect replacement for Outlook for me. The only unknown I have is how well it would handle sharing calendars and scheduling within an organization. That's something I extensively used Outlook for in past jobs, but have no reason to use at the moment. Thunderbird has the invitee functions I would expect, so it's probably serviceable. It lacks Zoom integration, so you'll have to copy-paste meeting links on your own if you use them, but it all seems to be working fine. Speaking of Zoom, there's an official Zoom app for Linux, and I've used it without issue. Same goes for Discord. Microsoft Teams might be an issue if you need it. There's an unofficial app, but I haven't tried it yet. And productivity apps aren't the only ones that I replaced with free and open source alternatives to the standard apps without issue. While the focus of this series is on breaking up with Windows, I also spent the last 2 years breaking up with Adobe. I'm not going to go off on a tangent complaining about Adobe right now, but I was sick of paying for a subscription even during my slow periods, among other concerns. But as a photographer and creative professional, I need capable and reliable tools. For a very long time, that meant Adobe, so I was stuck. But a lot of other options have improved substantially or appeared in recent years, and I've made the switch. My most used Adobe program was Lightroom, and I completely replaced it with the free and open source application Darktable. It's fantastic and does everything that I need. There are a ton of amazing free and open source creative applications now with enough capability to support a working professional. GIMP just had a major update that brought substantial improvements to the program. Krita is incredible. Audacity, Blender, Inkspace, OpenTunes, and Scribus are all worth looking into if you need to do the things that they do. And if you need a DAW, you have Ardor and LMMS. I'm using all of these programs in some way, shape, or form, or I'm trying to learn them. Capable creative tools are not necessarily locked behind a subscription anymore. Now, there are some areas where these programs can't compete with Adobe. This is especially true for generative AI tools like Generative Fill. Fortunately, I don't really use generative AI for anything, so this is fine for me. I think you'd be amazed how much you can do without spending $70 a month with a 1-year commitment. Now, I realize there are a lot of Adobe users who do not have a choice. You need Adobe, and specifically Adobe, for work because it's a requirement for your job or your contract. If that's you, check out Winboat. It's still in beta, but I've heard it works. It's a form of virtualization to allow Windows programs in Linux. I haven't got it working yet, but I'm going to come back to it in the near future. When it comes to video editing, you do have a free and open source option that is very capable and popular with Linux users in Kdenlive. I did install Kdenlive, but I don't really know what I'm doing, and it isn't going to be what I use most of the time. It does look like a great project, and it has a ton of potential. Professionally, I use DaVinci Resolve Studio. That's a proprietary program from Blackmagic Design, and this was the biggest deal breaker program for me in switching to Linux. Resolve has a free version, which you should absolutely check out if you're interested in it, and a paid Resolve Studio version with a perpetual license, which is what I use. It's how I edited all of my YouTube videos. I need it for my freelancing work and for some contracts that I have. So if I couldn't get it working on Linux, I couldn't completely switch. But it does have a native Linux version. And it was a complete and total pain in the neck to get it working the first time I tried. Seriously, I almost gave up on this whole thing and was reevaluating every life choice I've ever made when I was struggling to get it working. I thought I was going to go insane. So here's my first big failure with Linux in this video. My Goodbye Windows video was completely made using the laptop featured in that video, and I didn't use Windows at all in making it. I wanted to see if I could, and using the laptop that is too old for Windows 11 served as validation to the points I argued in that video, at least to me personally. Before I even started making that video, I wiped my laptop and installed Linux Mint. Then I spent a day installing everything I wanted and getting it all set up like I would want. I played around with it to make sure everything worked well enough, and I encrypted my laptop because sometimes I have client stuff on here that I need to make sure I keep secure, even if the laptop gets stolen. I'm not going to have my professional reputation get destroyed because somebody swipes my backpack and leaks sensitive pre-release product specs or something like that. And then I messed up. I'm not exactly sure how, but I accidentally changed a login timeout variable to 0 in a config file. So I had exactly 0 seconds to enter my password before it would lock me out again. And because everything was encrypted, I couldn't even get into the config files to fix it using a live image on a USB drive. I started frantically searching online to find a solution, but after a couple of hours I gave up and just deleted the partitions off my SSD, and I started over. Luckily, the only thing I actually lost was time and a little bit of my will to live. I didn't have any files on my laptop that weren't also on my NAS and or external hard drive, which I still had access to. See, that's the thing with Linux. It gives you freedom to do whatever you want with your system. You own it, you're the boss. Even if the thing you tell it to do is absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid, you're free to mess up anything and everything your heart desires. So I started over. I spent another day and a half getting back to where I was. And yes, I made sure I was able to install DaVinci Resolve Studio and that it would open and looked right. So I started researching that video. I bookmarked hundreds of links in Firefox. I wrote the script using LibreOffice Writer. I emailed some questions with Thunderbird. I discussed some revisions to the script with some trusted friends in Discord. I had a Zoom call with the composer for the music. I recorded some test audio in Audacity. I sketched some thumbnail ideas in Krita. I backed everything up by syncing it with my Nextcloud server. I did everything for pre-production on the laptop using Linux Mint successfully. I was feeling good about this whole thing again, so I set up my camcorder, my microphones, my lights, and my little makeshift living room studio. I copied the script onto the Android tablet, dropped it into the teleprompter, and recorded my talking head video. Then I set everything up and shot all of my B-roll shots. The video clips of the laptop and the other computers, all of that stuff. I grabbed all my SD cards and started ingesting my footage and my audio recordings onto the laptop and synced the ingest folder to my NAS. About 300 gigs of data total. Then I went to bed, because doing all that stuff solo is like a full day's work, especially when you have as many bloopers and bad takes as I had. The next morning, I rolled out of bed, stumbled into the kitchen to grab my coffee, and sat down at my desk to get to work. I fired up the laptop, opened Resolve, and dropped my media folder into the media pool. Then, it happened. The error message. VRAM full. I opened resources to see what is using my VRAM. I have 6 gigs of VRAM in this laptop, so I do expect some limitations when I'm working with a bunch of 4K footage and start doing motion graphics and effects, and I know color correction is going to be tough. But I didn't even make a timeline yet. Something has to be going on. VRAM usage, 800 megabytes of 6.44 gigabytes. I'm not a math expert, but about 12.5% usage does not equal full. Time to hit the search engines. That's a phrase I said to myself a lot while switching to Linux. Spent the next few hours searching and changing settings. It turns out it was some issue with Resolve recognizing my GTX 1060 as the GPU and using it for hardware acceleration and for CUDA, but then not recognizing the VRAM and turning to the Intel integrated graphics for video memory. I think. I'm still not 100% sure. I read through a bunch of forums and eventually got it working. For some reason, it also only worked if I launched Resolve in the terminal. But after a few hours, I got it to work without throwing a video memory error. I made a timeline, dropped some footage in, and started scrubbing around while I watched the resource usage. 2 gigs of VRAM used. It was using the dedicated GPU. Finally, I can actually work. I pop on my headphones and get to work. Then I take off my headphones and make sure they're plugged in. They are. So why don't I hear anything? Okay, I'll try the subpar laptop speakers. Still nothing. Maybe Bluetooth? Nope, still nothing. Great. And yes, I know about DaVinci Resolve's audio codec limitation on Linux. I recorded my audio in the correct format to avoid issues. I open a web browser and navigate to YouTube. I can hear the video playing just fine. I test a few other applications. Everything works. It's just Resolve that doesn't have audio. And it doesn't even show waveforms or make sounds that are from the interface, not from my media. It's not recognizing any audio device or capabilities on my system at all. Back to DuckDuckGo, I guess. For 2 days, I scoured through forums and frantically searched the web for an answer. I tried a million different fixes. I downgraded packages, I upgraded packages, I edited config files. I installed and uninstalled a million different things that were suggested. Nothing worked. Was this it? Am I finally going to give up? 8 years in the Marines, 3 combat tours, a rough divorce. I've persevered through a lot in my life. Was trying to switch to Linux going to be the thing that finally broke me? It was starting to feel like it. I needed to walk away for a day or two. And then, in one of the 600 million internet forum posts I read, I found the comment that brought it all back to the start. Dude, you're using the wrong distro. You need to use something Fedora based. For Resolve, you want Nobara. The distro choice monster struck again. I wiped the laptop and started over. And everything went swimmingly. Everything I needed to work worked. I grabbed all the screenshots I needed, including installing Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales from my Steam library and playing for a bit to get some real gameplay footage. And I got about 90% of my editing done before I encountered my next issue. Resolve released an update and it was causing crashes. So I uninstalled it, reinstalled the previous version, and rolled the computer back a day using Timeshift. Back on track, everything works great. I finished the video and uploaded it. The Linux trial by fire was complete. I had persevered. And so far, that's been my experience with switching to Linux. A lot of stuff just works and is super easy. A lot of stuff works, but it's different, so you have to take some time to learn how to do it different. Calc is not Excel. There are some differences. But after you get used to it, you're golden. And then you might even save some money in the switch. Now, some things are quirky and take some time to get used to. One commentator on my last video said it was frustrating how often you have to put your password in on Linux. While some people are dismissive of that complaint, I get it. It's a valid complaint. On my laptop, I boot it up and I have to put in a password to decrypt the boot drive. Then my password to log in. Then a password to decrypt the secondary SSD I have encrypted but set to auto mount. Then my password because I need to provide authorization for the system to unlock the drive. Then my password again because now that the drive is unlocked, I need to provide authorization to mount it. That's 5 times in a row I need to input a password every time I boot up my laptop. Yes, that gets annoying. But it isn't universal. On my home theater PCs, I put in my password once when I turn on the machine, and then I occasionally have to put it in to authorize an update or to install something. But it isn't excessive and it's totally fine. It's just something you get used to. You get used to a lot of stuff after using it a bit. But some stuff ends up being so frustrating, you're going to want to give up. Your ability to search the internet can be tested. But once you put in the work to get it working, it's totally viable. Just go into it knowing what sacrifices you're going to have to make. My tour box doesn't work on Linux, and I love this thing. So I had to rely on my ZenSlab Quick Keys instead. Link in the video description if you want a great portable accessory keypad with Linux support. I'm also going to skip Battlefield 6. I'm probably going to have to skip some other games too, because of anti-cheat issues. But I'm finally free. Or, I'm almost free. This video went way long. I haven't even gotten to the desktop and the tablet yet. Those two are going to be even more challenging than the laptop was. I can feel it. Also, I'm thinking about trying a different distro for the home theater PCs. So I guess Hello Linux is getting at least a part 2. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Oh, I almost forgot about the NUC. The NUC was easy. Linux Mint installed and worked perfectly and is exactly what I need for that machine. It's just a low-power computer that I use for light browsing and light tasks to save on electricity and avoid generating a bunch of heat when I don't need all the horsepower of my desktop. The NUC is my always-on computer, and switching to Linux Mint on it was a great experience. No notes, no complaints. Finally, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who watched, liked, commented, or subscribed from my last video. I can't believe how many people watched me yell at a 10-year-old camcorder for 20 minutes and still wanted to be supportive. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And hopefully, I'll see you next time.